It was on August 30th, 2017 that the trade was finalized to send Isaiah Thomas, the then star point guard of Boston, to Cleveland in exchange for Kyrie Irving, the also talented one guard of the Cavs. At the time, fans of the NBA were shocked and some even saddened that someone who gave it all for their city would be moved on such a whim, a guy who played after his sister's death, after losing teeth through an injury that as of right now has practically sidelined his career and cost him millions of dollars. Isaiah Thomas wasn't the only reason people were talking about this trade. Why would Kyrie want to get away from the Cavs, namely LeBron? He's guaranteed a trip to the finals every year, and at the time was the only team even close to challenging the Golden State Warriors. As we learned, Kyrie went to incredible lengths to make the trade happen, not talking to his teammates, even going as far as to threaten to get surgery to take himself out of the next season so they couldn't make him play. So what does this have to do with anything? I just think it's so interesting how history repeats itself, this time in the DeMar-Kawhi trade practically mirroring what happened with Boston and Cleveland last summer. Of course there are different circumstances at play within each trade, like IT's nagging injury, and Kawhi acting totally out of character with his group, but in essence both have two key factors: a player who'd give anything to bring home a championship to his town, and a player totally uncaring about the team that developed them. Both swapped in an attempt by the franchises to win rings. So this got me thinking, has loyalty ever really existed in the NBA? I'm Mack Pinko, and I'd like to take a look at the DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi trade to see if this was inevitable or if loyalty is ever really rewarded. Before delving into the trade, I just want to take a brief look at DeMar to give you guys an idea for how good he actually is. Drafted 9th overall in 2009, an extremely talented class including players like Blake Griffin, James Harden, and Steph Curry to name a few. By the Toronto Raptors, DeMar has been one of the few players to really embrace not only the team, but the country, and made it more than clear that he intended to give Toronto his career. This was by no means an empty gesture. DeMar is an extremely talented shooting guard, and arguably made a case for one of, if not the best shooting guard in the East. But what makes him so good? Standing at 6'7" with a wingspan of 6'9", DeMar has fantastic size to play the 2 on any team in the league, complemented by his nothing short of freakish athleticism. Seriously, he's the total athletic package. He's explosively fast with a quick first step to help him blow by defenders, where he takes advantage of insane body control and his ability to change pace, where he can finish with an extremely soft touch or slam it down with a dunk that shakes the stadium. I can't stress his body control enough. I've noticed that when he gets in the paint, he usually uses the benefit of his size and takes very long controlled steps, kind of like Euro steps to squeeze by defenders, where he makes it to the rim and can finish with practically every method available: an up and under, a reverse layup, a floater, or just a mid-range jumper. Speaking of his mid-range game, in a league dominated by three-point shooting, DeMar showcases just how deadly a mid-range game can be. His shot is silky smooth within 20 to 25 feet of the basket, utilizing an overall just seamless shot that he manages to get off in a variety of different ways: turnaround jumpers, fadeaways, and step backs. It's always crazy to me too how players like DeMar and, funny enough, LaMarcus Aldridge can make such low percentage shots practically the bread and butter of their game, turning it into a strength. While not a knockdown three-point shooter by any means, he can still shoot from deep, and it's something he's made real attempts to work on, shooting 31.2% from 3 on 3.6 attempts per game this season. He's got great handles that he's able to turn into crossovers to help him get by the defense, but the most underappreciated part of his game that we finally saw really shine in Dwayne Casey's system last year was his passing. The guy can facilitate and has demonstrated that not only does he have great court vision and is more than willing to pass the ball, but he can drop some really crazy dimes. DeMar is an offensive monster, and I could go on and on: his footwork, his speed, his feel for the game, but despite it all, he's by no means the perfect player. Defense is probably his biggest shortcoming, and I honestly don't think I'd even say he's a straight up bad defender, but more like the effort just isn't there. He has all the tools to succeed: size, footwork, lateral quickness, strength. It looks to me just like he almost doesn't want to. He's also a very emotional player, which alone has its pros and cons. He's passionate, and when he feels it, gives his all, single-handedly affecting the flow of a game. This can be tough in the playoffs, where I almost want to say he puts too much pressure on himself and he starts to make silly mistakes and doesn't always play to what he's really capable of, falling apart in big moments. Despite it all, he's still a 4-time All-Star with an absurd amount of talent, and while many great players have come through Toronto like Mack, Vince Carter, and Chris Bosh, why would they want to give up someone like DeMar, who's been nothing but loyal, for Kawhi, a player who made it clear he wanted to go to LA and didn't want to play for Toronto? Kawhi Leonard is a top 5 player when healthy in the league, potentially even top 3 from person to person, but after his nothing short of bizarre year, he's leaving a lot of really tough questions to answer, especially on Toronto's end. Before I get really into this, I want you guys to know I have nothing against Kawhi. In fact, he used to be one of my favorite players, until the way he handled himself with the Spurs. Even then, at the end of the day, we're never really going to know with 100% accuracy what happened with regards to his injury and how the Spurs might have treated him, or if he really just wanted to play in LA. With how vocal he's been about not wanting to play for anyone that's not the Lakers, especially Toronto, and whatever mystery injury he's dealing with that has kept him off the court for practically an entire season, why trade your nothing but dedicated franchise player for Kawhi? After thinking about it and discussing it with Toronto fans, the general idea behind this move seems to be that this is going to be a bang or bust year for the Raptors, and if you've got the chance on a top 5 player in the league, you've got to give it a shot. Even though the Raptors ended the season as the #1 seed in the East, the first time since the team was formed in 1995, the core of Lowry and DeRozan just wasn't working in the playoffs, no matter what ways they tried, be it isolation ball or team basketball. And with Kyle only getting older, it was looking like it was time for a change. They get to make a serious push for the championship, and if it doesn't work, Kawhi leaves in the offseason, then they officially start a rebuild and don't have to worry about DeMar's contract. This is kind of like a high-risk, high-reward style gambit. If it works, the upside is crazy. One of, if not the best two-way players in the league is on your team, and if they somehow manage to re-sign Kawhi next season, this was a slam dunk move. If he doesn't, then they may have not only gotten rid of a first-round pick, but essentially given up their best player for what turns out to be nothing. While DeMar might have a large contract, if Toronto was really committed to blowing it up and starting a rebuild, I'm sure other teams would have gladly given up younger players or picks or a combination of both to get a genuine all-star in DeMar. From the Spurs perspective, I love this move. Kawhi's camp talking to the media so often made it really hard to trade him, especially when he kept refusing to play for teams that weren't the Lakers. So no team, including LA, is going to gut their young core for a guy who they might have a chance at next offseason. So the Spurs getting an all-star in DeRozan, a young piece in Jakob Poeltl, and a first-round pick was an awesome move. Even so, when all is said and done, DeMar took a pay cut to re-sign with the Raptors so they could try and sign new talent. He could have gone to another team or complained, but he was always a professional, and shouldn't that loyalty be rewarded? Or is that just a concept that we as fans, maybe even as people, just imagine? People often do what they think is best for themselves and those they might be responsible for. And this is no different in the world of basketball, be it Kevin Durant leaving OKC to join the Warriors, or the Kings trading a faithful DeMarcus Cousins to the Pelicans in an attempt to get younger. It can be upsetting as fans of these franchises and players to see them separate, and it's always a tough pill to swallow, remembering at the end of the day, it's just a business. But it's always cool when it works out for both teams and players, like Paul George staying with and loving the Thunder, and Oladipo really finding his home in Indiana. A trade that seemingly worked out for all parties involved. While it might not always work out this well, and we hope to retire our star players' jersey so they can become the next Kobe Bryant or Tim Duncan, sometimes a fresh start is all a player or an organization might need to start something really great. Who knows, maybe San Antonio will totally embrace DeMar and he'll be really happy, opening up his game and becoming an even better player along the way. The same can be said for Kawhi. Maybe he falls in love with Toronto and the change of scenery was all it took to put his head back on straight, lighting it up like the monster we all know he can be. I can't help but find it funny that this weird duality surrounding this trade and the Kyrie-Isaiah Thomas trade, in that the one player who was loyal and totally happy with his team got traded for a player that really wasn't. It's just funny how the business can be. Although it's always fun when players and franchises are kind of on the same page, keeping fan favorite players in the same town, giving them that legacy that many players strive for, that they were going to win a ring for their franchise their way and didn't care what it took. Either way, these kind of moves are good for the league in a strange sense. They keep it interesting and constantly shift the power balance in the league from team to team and help to make for a really exciting sport where anyone can become competitive with the right trade. Hopefully this one happens to work for everyone, and it's going to be tight seeing LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar destroy the mid-range with fadeaways and turnaround jumpers, and Kawhi and Danny Green help turn Toronto into a defensive juggernaut. Loyalty is real, but to most it's conditional. Teams and players usually staying that way as long as it can help further their respective career and goals, and it's rare to be reciprocated by both in a long-term affiliation, making it so special when it does happen. Loyalty is never a bad thing, and it's very rarely forgotten. Those are some of the players and moments that make basketball so great and gives teams their signature identity, and go on to be the championships won that mean the most. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I just want to thank everybody for their support and subbing. Seriously, you guys are awesome, and I read every comment. I'd like to apologize to anyone who really liked the Devin Booker and Rondo vids. They got taken down by copyright claims, and I'm trying to dispute them and get them back up, but it's been rough. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.